And when you've got action flowing out of you, how does this process work? And so I'm going to start in this bottom corner here. So I had depicted input coming into us. We have some nebulous perception of how the world works, and out of that perception, we identify opportunities. Opportunities to act. At this corner of the triangle, there's a little person. And I'm calling him the spotter. And the spotter is this little guy that lives in your brain. And what his job is, or her job, its job, is to pick up all of that input from all of the sources that you receive, all of your sensory input and your thoughts and your feelings, everything you read, everything you observe. The spotter is the person that takes all of that input and turns it into some perception of the world, and who pulls out of all of that input opportunities to act. And the reason I call him the spotter is that's his job. He's processing through a lot of stuff, trying to spot opportunities. And while the way that we understand the world to work is important, most important of all in decision making is the opportunities that we perceive, because it's the opportunities that give us agency. That's where we are able to act. Let's see. The reason that I call the spotter out as a person who lives in your brain is, to Randy's point, we don't have power over how smart we are. We don't have power over how perceptive we are. And by acknowledging that and saying, I can't just will myself to be smarter, I can't will myself to be more perceptive, we're acknowledging that there's a part of our brain that we don't have control over. And so, to me, it's easiest to picture that as a whole other person. Some other person who's picking up information that's coming in and giving me opportunities, presenting opportunities to me out of that information. As an example of that, think back to high school. Yeah, I know, right?
It's a long time.
Inger, what was a subject that you just struggled with in high school?
Math.
And
Let me think.
did you choose for math to be hard for you?
Did I choose for it to be hard?
And
I don't know.
and what I'm going to propose is you didn't. That math being hard for you is just the way your brain is shaped, the way that your biology functions, the way that you perceive the world, whatever it is that clicks things together in your brain just isn't designed in a way, or wasn't then in high school designed in a way that it made sense of the information, at least not as it was being presented to you. Now it's possible someone could have presented the information to you in a different way.
Later, somebody did, and
Yeah.
it clicked, and I got it.
Yeah.
Hormones weren't raging.
And it's not necessarily that you were smarter or dumber or anything else then. It's just that the shape of your brain, I'll call it the shape of your brain, fit the information that was being presented to you later. The shape of your brain didn't fit the information that was coming into you earlier. Or...
Sorry, I don't think that the shape of her brain is necessarily solely biological. I think that there's a lot of social input that shapes our brain, or shapes this filter of what we pull out and what we find difficult or not, based on our gender, race, class. I think all those things affect this spotter, this filter.
Nature, nurture.
And one thing I don't want to leave anyone with the impression of is that you can take this spotter and map it to your cerebral frontal cortex or something like that. again, I'm not trying to get into how the world really works. There's the spotter is the shape of your brain, the culture you were raised in, a whole bunch of factors that I don't know about or that none of us have identified. But all of those factors come together in our real life, and we have, for whatever physical or cultural reasons, things that each of us perceive well or perceive poorly. And, yeah.
So are you saying at that particular moment, the decisions have already been made to shape the brain at that particular moment?
Thank you for making that point. I also don't want to leave you with the impression that we can't make changes over time that will affect the way that we're able to perceive the world. So our spotter can grow and change over time, but at any given moment, our spotter is what it is. Our spotter English spotter in high school wasn't able to take the math information that was being presented to it and process it into these orange X's of opportunities.
The second time I took the math and I got it, I really got it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because I really wanted to. I had a purpose. I'd gone back to school and things like that, and I was ready, but I was all about getting it.
Yep.
It was painful, but I got it eventually. But I just, yeah, but it was totally different than in high school.
And so, to Vince's statement about the spotter existing at a point in time, you can see the way I've drawn this triangle. I've got some orange X's that are inside the triangle and some orange X's that are outside the triangle. Now, over time, ideally, we take the little corner of the triangle, our spotter gets smarter, and the triangle corner comes out to here, or out to here. And now if I redraw that triangle to the new corner, it's picking up opportunities that it hadn't picked up before. And so the simplistic way that I'm looking at the world for the purpose of our discussion tonight is we're surrounded by opportunities. 99% of them live outside of our triangle. 1% of them, or whatever little bit we pick up on, our spotter catches and sticks them in our triangle so that we have a chance to act on those.
So using the math situation, it could be that intellectually you're perfectly capable of picking up math, but at the time it was presented to you in the first case, you didn't connect the opportunity of learning that information, so you weren't engaged and interested in it. So the concept would be, when you were exposed to it later, that triangle had adjusted, the spotter had a new perspective, and it was something that was worth giving the time and interest to begin to learn.
Yeah, I think that's a good narrative structure for how the spotter can change, and it can go forward and back. Mark?
I had a conversation with one of my brothers recently, and he was telling me about a conversation that he had with a friend at work. And his friend at work was making the point that success is all based upon intelligence. And my brother, who has ADHD, his whole life had problems finding motivation to work, and once he saw a psychiatrist and they put him on Adderall, he was suddenly able to focus, and all of a sudden he became successful in his career. So, that's all biological.
Right.
I have my own biological problems, which I'll bring up later, but it was just interesting, that this colleague of his that had never experienced mental illness was making the point that it's just based on intelligence, it's all intelligence. And my brother was trying to explain to him, no, there's a lot more than that. There are other things in our brain that can prevent us from being successful or doing what we want to do.
Yeah.
And so in my brother's case, it was just a matter of chemicals, it was a matter of medication. Now he's very successful in his career because of a simple medication.
And what limits the spotter, there are a lot of factors. Intelligence can be one. What are the words for those? Anyway, neurotransmitters, that's the word I'm looking for. Neurotransmitters, biology, culture, even where you live. If you live in Mongolia, your spotter is going to have access to fewer opportunities than if you live in San Francisco or New York. So, just to reemphasize the point, the spotter isn't analogous to some brain structure. It represents everything about your capacity to perceive opportunities in the world, and what it affects it. So, on the second page, on the first page, in the bottom left, did everyone write spotter? Put spotter down by that corner there, so that you remember that's the spotter. And then turn on to the next page, and I've got